The rain hit the glass like a warning. From the 49th floor of the Holt and Vale Tower, the city looked like it was drowning in silver light. Sleek cars slicing through puddles, sirens blurring beneath neon signs. Inside, everything was still. Too still. Amaya Steele stood by the window, her reflection split in two, one side framed by gold chandeliers, the other washed in the storm outside. Behind her, Damien Holt's voice broke the silence. "You're making this harder than it has to be." The words were sharp, clean, rehearsed, the way you'd cut a business deal, not in an engagement. Amaya turned slowly. Her silver gown shimmered faintly under the chandelier, her eyes rimmed with disbelief. On the marble table between them sat a single white envelope. Smooth, heavy, corporate, the kind used for merger contracts and million-dollar wire transfers. Damien's hands were steady as he slid it toward her. 1 million, he said. Enough to start over. Enough to disappear. She stared at it like it was radioactive. Disappear? Her voice cracked, quiet, but cutting through the room like glass. "This isn't about you," Damien said. "It's about timing. Optics. The board." "The board?" she interrupted, a soft laugh escaping her. "You mean the people I helped you impress? The ones who told you I wasn't polished enough for the heir of Holt and Vale?" He didn't answer. His jaw tightened. The same look he wore during negotiations. That mask. That chill. Amaya's fingers brushed the envelope. Cold paper. Heavy ink. Her name written in the same neat cursive he used to sign love letters. It felt like betrayal in handwriting. "After everything," she whispered, "this is how you end it? With a check." Damien didn't flinch. "You deserve to walk away with something. Consider it compensation." Compensation. The word echoed like thunder. Her eyes burned, but she didn't cry. Not yet. She picked up the check, studied it under the chandelier. $1 million, written in smooth black ink on Holt and Vale letterhead. "You think money can erase what you did?" she said quietly. "No," he replied, "but it can buy silence." And that was it. The final cut. Amaya set the check back down, slow and deliberate. She slipped off the diamond ring, the one he'd given her on the balcony of that same penthouse 2 years ago, and placed it beside the envelope. "You're going to regret this," she said. "Not because you lost me, Damien, but because you never understood what I was capable of." He said nothing, didn't even look up as she turned away. The elevator doors closed behind her with a hiss, sealing the silence between them. Down in the lobby, the air smelled like rain and polished marble. Reporters flashed cameras, shouting questions about corporate deals she no longer cared about. She pushed through the revolving doors and stepped into the storm. Her heels splashed through puddles, mascara streaked down her cheeks, but her spine stayed straight. Every step away from that building felt like a heartbeat toward something new. Behind her, high above the city, Damien Holt stood by the same window and watched her vanish into the rain, the woman he thought he could pay to disappear. But what he didn't know, what he couldn't possibly imagine, was that the check wasn't the end. It was the fuse. The city swallowed her as soon as the doors closed behind her. Cabs hissed past. Streetlights flickered on slick pavement. Somewhere, a siren cried like the world was in on the heartbreak. Amaya didn't know where she was walking. She just knew she couldn't stop. The cold cut through the silk of her gown, the storm turning every breath into smoke. She reached the corner of 5th and Larch before she realized she was still holding her clutch. Inside it, the envelope she swore she'd left behind. Her hand trembled. She almost threw it into the gutter. Almost. Instead, she opened it. The check gleamed under the rain, the ink bleeding slightly where the water touched it. Damien Holt written in that practiced signature of power. Beside it, a note in his handwriting. "Don't call. Don't come back. It's better this way." For a moment, she stood there, thunder above, traffic below, and understood what it meant to be erased. She folded the paper once, slid it back inside, and walked until the lights blurred into tears. By dawn, she was on the outskirts of the city. Her phone buzzed with headlines. Holt and Vale confirms breakup with former VP Amaya Steele. Then another, anonymous sources cite financial misconduct. Her heart stopped. The smear campaign had begun. Screens across breakfast cafes replayed clips of her laughing beside Damien at charity galas, the captions twisting every image into scandal. In less than 12 hours, she'd gone from visionary co-founder to gold-digging executive. She turned the phone off. At a quiet motel by the interstate, she checked in under a different name, Mara Stone. Paid in cash. No questions asked. The room smelled like dust and lost dreams. A single lamp buzzed beside the bed. She sat there, drenched, the envelope on the nightstand. For hours, she stared at it, not with greed but fury. That piece of paper wasn't salvation. It was insult wrapped in ink. When sleep finally came, it was filled with flashes. The boardroom glare, Damien's cold eyes, her own reflection fading behind glass. 3 days later, she woke up different. No tears left. No hope either. Just a still, dangerous calm. She found a thrift store suit, tied her hair back, and walked into a downtown bank. The teller hesitated when she saw the amount. "You're sure you want to cash this?" Amaya's lips curved into the faintest smile. "I'm sure." When the bills slid across the counter, she didn't feel rich. She felt armed. She packed a single bag, boarded a southbound train, and watched the skyline vanish. Each mile that pulled her away from Holt and Vale felt like unlearning the woman he'd tried to define. Somewhere between cities, she opened a notebook and wrote 3 words at the top of a clean page. Make him remember. Weeks blurred into months. The headlines burned out. The world forgot. But she didn't. She rented a 1-room apartment above a small cafe in Atlanta. Nights, she waited tables. Mornings, she read about markets, supply chains, patents, the language of people who built empires. The kind who thought women like her would never sit at the table. Every dollar of that million went into learning their world. Not buying silence, buying leverage. She took online courses under an alias, built spreadsheets until her eyes ached, and began sketching a plan so sharp it felt like revenge in blueprint form. One night, as rain tapped against the window, softer now, almost nostalgic, she unfolded the original check. The ink had faded, edges curled, but the signature still glared back at her. She smiled for the first time in months. "You paid me to vanish," she whispered. "But you forgot. I know how you build things. And I know how to take them apart." She slid the check into a small fireproof box, locked it, and tucked it under the floorboard. Not as proof of pain, but as the starting gun. From that night forward, Amaya Steele no longer existed as the woman who'd been bought. She became the architect of her own empire, patient, invisible, unstoppable. And far above the city skyline she'd left behind, the lights of Holt and Vale still gleamed, unaware that the storm they'd unleashed was only gathering strength. He thought he'd written her ending, but all he'd done was fund her beginning. The first morning in Atlanta, Amaya Steele woke to the shrill cry of her phone. Text messages, notifications, emails. She pressed her thumb against the screen and froze. The headlines hit like bullets. Ex-VP Amaya Steele accused of embezzlement at Holt and Vale. Anonymous sources claim Steele misappropriated millions. Holt and Vale cut ties with former executive amid scandal. Her chest tightened. This wasn't business news. This was war. Screenshots of fake emails, doctored spreadsheets, and falsified bank statements have been released. Each one painted her as greedy, careless, and criminal. Even her LinkedIn profile had been wiped clean. She scrolled through the comments. They were merciless. Should have known she was trouble. Typical corporate diva, thinking she's untouchable. Glad they clean house. Can't trust people like her. Somewhere in the blur of glass and neon from her apartment window, the reality struck. Damien Holt had not only broken her heart, he'd orchestrated her public execution. She dialed him. Voicemail. Dialed again. Voicemail. On the 3rd attempt, his assistant picked up. "Mr. Holt is unavailable. Please direct all inquiries through legal channels." Legal channels. That's when she understood. Damien wasn't just ending their engagement. He was erasing her. By the evening, it was everywhere. The same networks that once called her the rising star of Holt and Vale now labeled her a cautionary tale of corporate greed. Even friends and colleagues stopped returning calls. Recruiters ghosted. Every opportunity evaporated. She stared at the floor of her small apartment. The framed diplomas from her top-tier business school lay face down. Photos of her awards, her achievements, gone or carefully removed from social media by Damien's silent network. Amaya Steele, once the genius who had saved Holt and Vale's luxury cosmetics line, was radioactive. But in the stillness, a thought began to take root. A quiet, dangerous spark. They can destroy my name. They can smear my past. But they cannot erase what I am capable of creating. She folded herself into the threadbare couch and opened her laptop. Blank spreadsheets glared back at her. Blank documents, empty business plans. For the first time since the stormed-out penthouse, she wrote a single line. Steelskin Labs. The name was more than a company. It was a declaration. Weeks passed. She immersed herself in research. Suppliers, formulas, ingredients, everything Damien's empire had ignored in pursuit of optics and boardroom politics. She contacted Dr. Malik Reed, a chemist who had been overlooked by major labs for being unconventional, and Zuri Lane, a marketing strategist whose brilliance had been dismissed by traditional luxury brands. Together, they were invisible, exactly the way Amaya wanted it. At night, she reviewed the viral headlines again. Every fabricated email, every doctor transfer, she memorized it. It was a blueprint of what had been done to her. And, secretly, she filed it away. Because while the world believed she had fallen, she was learning. They built their empire on arrogance, she murmured. I will build mine on strategy. And for the first time, she smiled. Not the forced smile of someone trying to survive. The quiet, unwavering smile of a storm that had been gathering strength in the shadows. Months later, the Atlanta sun filtered through her tiny lab. The first formulas had been tested. The first bottles packaged. Orders weren't massive. Not yet, but the excitement was palpable. Social media buzzed. Influencers whispered. Dermatologists nodded. And in every shipment, every carefully crafted serum, Amaya Steele infused one message. We see you. We make room for you. We don't disappear. Holt and Vale never noticed the small storm brewing in the south. But soon, the storm would be undeniable. The world thought they had erased Amaya Steele. But erasing her only gave her the silence she needed to plan the most precise comeback they would ever see. The apartment was quiet. Too quiet. Outside, the city thrummed with life. Taxis weaving like threads in a metallic loom, neon flashing promises of fortune and fame. Inside, Amaya Steele sat on the threadbare couch, her laptop open but untouched, staring at the wall. It had been 6 months since Holt and Vale had destroyed her. 6 months since the headlines had screamed lies across the world. 6 months since she had watched Damien Holt smile in the papers while her name became a cautionary tale. At first, she had let the grief take her. She had let herself cry in empty mugs of coffee, let the rain for her small window blur into tears she didn't bother to stop. But grief, she realized, was a teacher. Amaya pulled the laptop closer. The cursor blinked. A blank page. She typed a single word. Strategy. She did not yet know what form her revenge would take. She did not yet know how she would reclaim her power. But she understood this. Patience was the weapon of the invisible. The next days passed in rhythm. A quiet rhythm that became her armor. Mornings, early walks through Atlanta streets, studying the logistics of small businesses, the flow of money she could one day control. Afternoons, spreadsheets, financial statements, competitor research. Evenings, calls with Dr. Malik Reed, a chemist whose brilliance had been overlooked, dismissed, just like her. People make the mistake of thinking this is about money, she said one night, scrolling through ingredient lists for her first formula. It's about control, about being seen. Malik nodded, not fully understanding yet, but trusting her instinct. Then we make it perfect, he said. And so they did. She learned to move without drawing attention. No press releases, no interviews, no social media presence. Every step was deliberate, invisible. She rented a small warehouse, peeling paint, flickering lights, concrete floors cold to the touch. It was humble, but it was hers. In that space, Amaya studied formulas, tested samples, and wrote endless notes. She hired a small team, all overlooked, all underestimated. A chemist whose ideas were considered too niche. A packaging designer who had been told luxury brands didn't want her aesthetic. A marketing strategist who had been rejected by every major firm. Together, they were invisible, exactly the way she wanted them. At night, she would sit alone, the envelope from Holt and Vale on her desk. She never opened it. She didn't need to. The check was no longer money. It was a promise, a reminder of why she could not fail. He paid me to disappear, she whispered into the dark. But the world doesn't know what I can build in silence. She began sketching plans, layouts of laboratories, supply chains, packaging prototypes, social media campaigns for products that didn't exist yet. Every detail mattered. Every connection she made in secret would become a thread in the web she was weaving. The quiet years weren't easy. She endured long nights, financial strain, self-doubt, loneliness. She saw herself in reflections of glass doors, asking, "Am I enough?" But unlike the world that had judged her in headlines, she answered honestly, "I will be more than enough." And slowly, the vision began to take shape. By the end of the first year, she had a name, Steelskin Labs. It was more than a brand. It was a declaration: brilliance cannot be silenced. Orders weren't massive, not yet. But the first formula, a serum designed for skin that had been ignored by traditional luxury brands, was perfected. Every ingredient carefully chosen, every bottle a statement, visibility, care, and power. And though the world still thought Amaya Steele was gone, she moved among it unseen. Patience became her ally. Silence became her strategy. The storm she would one day unleash was being built, molecule by molecule, spreadsheet by spreadsheet, formula by formula. And somewhere, high above the skyline of New York, the Holt and Vale Tower gleamed. Damian Holt still believed he had won, still believed the world had forgotten her. But Amaya Steele did not plan to return quietly. She would return unstoppable. The world thought she had vanished. They were wrong. In silence, she learned. In patience, she built. And when she finally returned, the storm would be hers. The small lab smelled of clean glass and chemical promise. Fluorescent lights flickered over rows of carefully labeled bottles. Amaya Steele moved among them, her steps deliberate, her hands steady. It had been 18 months since the storm of betrayal. 18 months of quiet work, endless calculations, and tireless testing. And tonight, for the first time, she held the finished product in her hands, a serum designed for skin often ignored by luxury beauty brands. The label read simply, "Steel Skin, Formula 1. No glittering promises, no exaggerated claims. Just precision, care, and the truth of efficacy." She smiled. This was the first spark of something far larger. Her phone buzzed. Notifications from her small but growing network of influencers, all under aliases, began to light up. A dermatologist she had quietly sent a sample to posted an unassuming story. Finally, a product that sees all skin tones. Impressed. Hashtag #SteelSkin. Within minutes, the response was cascading. Tweets, shares, DMs, screenshots. Orders trickled in at first. 20, 30, 50 bottles. Nothing massive, but enough to confirm what she already knew. The world had been waiting for her. The team gathered around a small wooden table, the lab smelling faintly of coffee and chemical reagents. Malik looked at her with awe. "It's actually happening," he said. Zuri smirked. "No, Amaya. You made it happen. They just didn't know it yet." Amaya's hands hovered over the shipment forms. She typed quickly, her fingers dancing across the keyboard. Every order, every address, every note carefully tracked. "Visibility," she said softly. "Not for fame, but for reach. The right people, the right timing." By morning, the first bottles had arrived at homes across the country. The reaction was instantaneous. Influencers began posting reviews, dermatologists shared before and after photos, and social media lit up like wildfire. Where has SteelSkin been all my life? Finally, a brand that actually understands melanin-rich skin. This serum is magic. I'm obsessed. Orders doubled, then tripled. By the end of the week, the tiny lab in Atlanta had processed over 10,000 bottles. Amaya watched the analytics. Revenue climbing. Engagement skyrocketing. Every shipment leaving the warehouse was a statement. She was back. Her phone buzzed with headlines about Holt and Vale's stagnant product lines. Sales were dipping. Consumers were noticing brands that had ignored diversity. And somewhere, someone in a boardroom probably frowned, unaware of the storm about to reach them. Amaya didn't celebrate. Not yet. She had built the spark, but the wildfire was still ahead. She stood by the window of her small lab, rain tapping lightly on the glass. The city lights reflected her silhouette. She raised her hands and whispered, "They thought I was gone. They were wrong." And in the quiet of that moment, she knew. The first spark had lit, and nothing would stop the blaze she was about to unleash. From invisible to unstoppable, she had sparked the flame. And every empire built on arrogance is about to feel the heat. The morning sunlight hit the small Atlanta lab like a spotlight. Amaya Steele stood at the head of the table, surrounded by her team. The air smelled of fresh coffee, clean bottles, and something electric potential. Orders had doubled overnight. Not hundreds, tens of thousands. Social media was ablaze with Steel Skin Formula One. Every post, every video, every testimonial was a signal flare. She was back, and she was unstoppable. "Our inbox is overflowing," Malik said, almost laughing in disbelief. "I've never seen anything like this." Amaya didn't smile. Not yet. She was calculating, measuring, planning. She tapped her pen against her clipboard. "This isn't luck," she said. "It's precision, timing, visibility. Every person who sees our product is part of the chain reaction. Keep track. Analyze everything. Nothing is accidental." Zuri nodded, already typing furiously on her laptop. "The influencers are posting organically now. No paid promotion. They can't stop talking about us." "Exactly," Amaya replied. "Word of mouth is the most powerful currency. Let them spread it. Let it grow." By the end of the week, Steel Skin Labs had become more than a viral product. It was a movement. Women of color, long ignored by luxury beauty brands, flooded their social media with photos, videos, and testimonials. Each post carried the same quiet defiance. "We are seen now." Even mainstream beauty editors took notice. Blogs, magazines, and news outlets began asking questions. Who is Amaya Steele? What is Steel Skin? How did this small Atlanta lab outshine billion-dollar corporations? And Holt and Vale remained oblivious. In New York, Damian Holt sat in his glass penthouse office, staring at a screen that reflected the cracks in his empire. Sales reports, customer feedback, and social media analytics all painted the same picture. Steel Skin Formula One was dominating the market, and Holt and Vale's new lines were floundering. "It's just a fad," he muttered. "It'll die down. People always chase the new thing." But inside, even he felt a twinge of unease. He didn't yet know the architect of this resurgence. Back in Atlanta, Amaya walked through the lab, her hands brushing against bottles and packaging prototypes. Every detail mattered. Every shipment reinforced the message she was sending: quality, care, and visibility. "We're not just selling a product," she reminded her team. "We're rewriting the narrative. We're showing the world who controls the conversation." Orders climbed into the hundreds of thousands. Steel Skin Labs had gone from a small lab to a nationwide presence in less than 2 months. "We need to scale production," Malik said, exhaustion in his voice but excitement in his eyes. "I can't keep up with the demand." Amaya nodded. "We'll hire. Expand carefully. Every new hire must understand the mission. Quality above all." The first hint that Holt and Vale was paying attention came quietly. A competitor reached out to Amaya under the guise of partnership. Their questions were probing, their interest thinly veiled as curiosity. She smiled to herself. "They want to understand how we did it," she murmured. "They don't know they're already too late." The beauty industry had underestimated her. The world had dismissed her. And now, every shipment, every glowing review, every viral post was proof the storm was real. By the 3rd month, Steel Skin Labs' revenue had tripled projections. The first Formula 2 product was ready, a serum targeting a skin concern no luxury brand had dared to address. Amaya looked out over the skyline of Atlanta from her modest office, hands folded, calm and deliberate. "They thought I was gone," she whispered. "They were wrong, and they'll know it soon." The city lights reflected in her eyes, but the reflection wasn't just her own. It was the future she was building. Unstoppable, precise, and undeniable. From invisible to unstoppable, from erased to unforgettable, Amaya Steele was no longer a footnote in someone else's story. She was the author of her own empire, and the world had no choice but to read it. Amaya Steele didn't believe in loud confrontations. The world had tried to erase her. She preferred quiet power. From her sleek Atlanta office, she studied the beauty industry like a chessboard. Every shipment, every distribution hub, every marketing contract, all of it could be leveraged. Visibility isn't always public, she told Malik and Zuri one morning. Influence doesn't need a headline. It can move behind the scenes, unnoticed, until it's too late. They nodded, understanding that this phase was about patience, precision, and positioning. Her first target was Whitmore Logistics, a failing distribution chain with a once sterling reputation. Owned by Olivia Whitmore, daughter of a major investor and now Holt and Vail's newest PR darling. It was perfect. A struggling company with historical ties to Holt and Vail, she said, scanning the financials. Understaffed, vulnerable. We can secure a controlling stake quietly. Through a network of offshore holdings and legal proxies, Amaya acquired 51% of Whitmore Logistics without anyone tracing it back to her. "Every shipment Holt and Vail relies on now passes through our network," she said with a calm precision that made Malik uneasy. "So we control their supply chain, and they don't even know it?" "Exactly," Amaya replied. "We control the artery. They don't know the hand that holds it." Next, she expanded her team discreetly. Top-tier chemists, formerly dismissed by big brands. Marketing experts overlooked by traditional firms. Analysts who could map consumer behavior better than any agency Holt and Vail had ever hired. Steelskin Labs was no longer just a viral product. It was an intelligence network. Every shipment tracked, every influencer partnership mapped, every competitor's weak spot cataloged. "We're not just making serums," Amaya said. "We're building leverage." Holt and Vail remained oblivious. Damian Holt walked glass towers in Manhattan, smiling for photos, unaware that his distribution, marketing, and product channels were subtly being infiltrated. "Our sales are fine," he told Olivia one evening. "We've adapted to market trends." Olivia, unaware that her family's company had quietly lost control, smiled. "We're untouchable." "Not everything is what it seems," Amaya whispered into the phone, a call she made under a false name. "Not everything." Meanwhile, Steelskin Labs' reputation soared. Orders multiplied, new products prepared for launch, and social media buzz remained relentless. Consumers began to question Holt and Vail's stagnant lines. "Why hasn't Holt and Vail launched anything new?" asked a beauty blogger, inadvertently amplifying Amaya's influence. Every step she took was precise, quiet, invisible, legal. No leaks, no headlines, just results. "The first strike isn't dramatic," she said to Malik as she studied shipping manifests. "It's imperceptible, but when the second and third strike come, the world will notice." By the end of the quarter, Steelskin Labs controlled not only their own supply chain, but a critical artery of the luxury beauty market. Orders could be rerouted, marketing campaigns subtly influenced, product launches timed and manipulated. "They think they're untouchable," Amaya said, looking out over Atlanta's skyline. "But they've been playing chess with pawns while I've been building the queen." The spark had ignited, the rise had begun, and now the first strike was laid. The empire that once tried to erase her would soon discover that the storm they created had been learning, growing, and waiting in silence. And when it would move without mercy. The skyline of Manhattan gleamed under the late afternoon sun, reflecting the power and pride of Holt and Vail. Inside their glass fortress, Damian Holt paced. Sales were down. Stock performance was weakening. Executives whispered in corridors. And yet he had no idea why. Because the storm was already inside. Amaya Steele watched from her Atlanta office, calm as ever. The numbers danced across her screen. 51% of Whitmore Logistics, strategic stakes in key distribution channels, shell companies holding silent leverage over multiple marketing firms. It's beautiful, Malik whispered, awe in his voice. They have no idea. Amaya didn't answer. She didn't need to. Every spreadsheet, every signature, every acquisition moved her closer to the ultimate goal, the boardroom. Holt and Vale's annual shareholder meeting was scheduled for early November. Damien believed it would be routine, a celebration of growth, an opportunity to announce the next product line. He didn't know that Steelskin Labs Network, through Aurora Capital LP, now controlled 49% of the company's voting power. Every proxy vote carefully positioned, every legal document finalized and airtight. Tonight, Amaya said softly, eyes on the city beyond her window, they will see what silence can do. The day of the meeting arrived. Executives filed into the grand boardroom, polished tables reflecting the crisp November light. Damien smiled for cameras, oblivious, while Olivia Whitmore fluttered beside him, the perfect image of power and poise. Amaya entered last, unannounced. Her presence was subtle, her entrance quiet. But behind her, a storm had already taken hold. "I'm here to vote," she said, voice soft yet firm. Security glanced at her badge, then at the legal documents she carried, flawless. Her name, through Aurora Capital LP, was now the majority voting power of Holt and Vale. Gasps rippled through the room. Damien froze. Olivia's face paled. "What, how?" Damien stammered. Amaya smiled faintly. "You trusted appearances. I trusted action." Slide presentations flickered, legal documents projected onto the screen. Proxy votes, official filings, and shareholder statements confirmed the truth. Steelskin Labs controlled the company. Effective immediately, Amaya announced, "I assume oversight of the board. The executive team will report to me. All future strategic decisions will be approved under my guidance." Whispers turned into murmurs. Investors leaned forward. The board chairman stammered, flipping through pages, realizing their authority had evaporated. Damien Holt's face turned ghost white. Every PR statement, every public appearance, every calculated move to erase Amaya Steele had failed. Now, in one legal, silent, and precise motion, she had reclaimed what they thought they had destroyed, control. I don't understand," Damien muttered. "You underestimated the woman you tried to erase," Amaya replied softly. "You forgot that silence is a weapon, and patience is deadly." Olivia Whitmore attempted to interject, but the weight of legality, strategy, and public accountability was on Amaya's side. She couldn't stop the transfer, couldn't contest the votes, couldn't undo the filings. The room fell silent except for the clicking of cameras. Every move she made was precise, every word intentional. And when she turned to leave, the message was clear. Holt and Vale no longer controlled its destiny. Amaya Steele did. Damien collapsed into his chair, stunned, powerless, his empire slipping like sand through his fingers. Olivia, once untouchable, now hovered on the edge of irrelevance. The storm had arrived silently, invisibly, yet with force undeniable. The empire that tried to erase her was now at her mercy. And in that boardroom, the woman they dismissed finally reclaimed everything, with precision, patience, and power. The grand ballroom of Holt and Vale shimmered under crystal chandeliers. Glasses clinked, laughter floated through the air, and photographers captured every pose. The annual gala was meant to celebrate wealth, power, and prestige, but tonight it would witness something else entirely. Amaya Steele arrived quietly, a vision of controlled elegance. Emerald gown hugging her form, curls framing her face like a crown of defiance. Her steps were deliberate, each one echoing in the marble-floored hall. Damien Holt, standing at the center with Olivia beside him, didn't see her at first. By the time his eyes landed on her, it was already too late. A hush fell over the crowd. Whispers rippled like waves. Cameras swung toward the unexpected guest, flashes illuminating her calm, poised expression. You didn't expect me, did you? Amaya's voice cut through the room, soft but commanding. Olivia gasped, spilling champagne onto the polished floor. Damien's mouth opened, then closed, words failing him. Amaya moved toward the stage, USB drive in hand. Tonight, she said, addressing the room, isn't about celebration. It's about truth. The screen flickered behind her. Slide 1. The infamous check Damien had handed her 10 years ago. Black ink on pristine letterhead. Memo line. For your silence and your future. 10 years ago, I was forced out, Amaya continued. I was erased from the company I helped build. Falsely accused, publicly shamed, and written out of the story they thought they controlled. Gasps echoed through the ballroom. Slide 2. Doctored emails, falsified bank statements. Metadata highlighted in red. Every fabricated piece of evidence that Holt and Vale had used to destroy her career was now exposed. This wasn't just betrayal, Amaya said. It was strategic erasure. Convenient, legal, and almost worked. She paused. Damien's face was ashen. Olivia's jaw was tight. Cameras clicked furiously. Slide 3. Jones' glow revenue figures. Bold, undeniable, and glowing on a massive screen. $1.1 billion in annual revenue, surpassing Holt and Vale's current market cap. I built a company worth more than yours, she said. Quietly, strategically, with brilliance you tried to erase. The final slide appeared. A legal document, stamped and signed. Ownership transfer effective immediately. Jones Glow, via Aurora Capital LP, now held 51% of Holt and Vale's voting power. Damien Holt, Amaya said, her voice calm but icy, you are now officially an employee at your own company. Security, quietly arranged by Amaya weeks prior, stepped in to enforce the reality. Damien's protests fell flat. Olivia's carefully curated image shattered in seconds. Then Amaya revealed the final piece. Text messages from Olivia to Damien, time-stamped and legally verified, discussing how to remove Amaya from the company. Get rid of the Steel Girl. Make sure the board blames her, Olivia had written. The room erupted in shock. Investors, board members, and journalists murmured and shouted. Flashbulbs captured every expression: humiliation, disbelief, and irreversible defeat. Amaya turned to the crowd, her expression serene. Justice doesn't always come in courtrooms, she said softly. Sometimes it comes in boardrooms. With that, she walked off the stage, leaving Damien and Olivia in the ruins of their own making. The gala descended into chaos, cameras flashing, reporters clamoring for details. Outside the ballroom, Amaya paused, looking over the glittering skyline of Manhattan. 10 years ago, she had walked away into the rain, $1 million in hand, heart shattered. Tonight, she walked away into the spotlight, a queen in her own right, her empire undeniable, her victory complete. The woman they tried to erase returned, not with noise, not with vengeance, but with precision, patience, and undeniable power. The storm had arrived, and it carried her name. The morning after the gala, Manhattan was buzzing, not with glamour, but with whispers of disbelief. Headlines screamed the truth. Steelskin founder seizes control of Holt and Vale. Inside the company's boardroom, the old order had crumbled. Damien Holt sat silently, muted in meetings, stripped of power, while Olivia Whitmore's calls went unanswered. Her influence evaporated. Amaya arrived at the Manhattan office for the first time as the majority stakeholder. She didn't wear the emerald gown this time, just a crisp suit, sleeves rolled up, eyes sharp. The company doesn't need spectacle, she told Malik and Zuri, now her executive advisors. It needs structure, integrity, and vision. Employees who once whispered behind closed doors now watched, uncertain. But Amaya didn't demand loyalty. She earned it. She walked the halls, listening, learning, and assessing. Her first order of business was rebuilding the company culture. Every toxic executive, every manipulative VP, every board member who had enabled deception was quietly replaced. In their place, she brought in leaders who valued merit over connections, substance over optics. "We're not just selling products," she told the new leadership team. "We're selling respect, innovation, and opportunity." Every decision reflects that. Olivia Whitmore's family quietly removed her from board positions, and Damien was reassigned as a consultant, a title with no voting power. Every day, he walked the halls, invisible to the employees who once bowed to him. Amaya also launched the Steel Legacy Initiative, a corporate program supporting women in leadership, mentorship programs, and inclusive hiring practices. Every press release, every media feature emphasized not just revenue, but impact. "Success without responsibility is meaningless," she said during the first press conference. "Our legacy will be defined not by what we take, but by what we give." Back in Atlanta, Joan's glow expanded beyond skincare. Malik, Zuri, and her chemist developed sustainable packaging, cruelty-free formulas, and inclusive marketing campaigns. The empire was no longer reactive. It was visionary. "We aren't chasing trends," Amaya told her team. "We create them, and we make sure the people we serve see themselves in everything we do." Meanwhile, Damien Holt's empire had become radioactive. Investors pulled back, public perception soured, and the company he once controlled was now operating under her vision. Every strategic misstep was a reminder. Pride without ethics collapses under scrutiny. "I traded love for legacy," Damien whispered to no one, "and lost both." Olivia, once the golden PR darling, disappeared from society pages, her carefully curated image replaced with whispers of scandal and betrayal. Months later, the media chronicled Amaya Steele's full-arc profiles, interviews, and viral stories celebrated not just the business triumph, but her resilience, intelligence, and strategy. Forbes, Vanity Fair, and the New York Times called her one of the most influential women in business. "The woman who walked away and returned stronger," read one headline. "The storm that rebuilt a billion-dollar empire," read another. Yet Amaya remained focused, rarely granting interviews. Her attention stayed on the next innovation, the next mission, the next opportunity to reshape the world. The final image of Amaya in the boardroom, overlooking the city skyline from the CEO office, was simple yet symbolic. Not gloating, not seeking revenge. She merely worked, tirelessly, purposefully, and with unwavering vision. Every decision, every policy, every product reflected her ethos: power with integrity, brilliance with responsibility. Amaya Steele didn't just reclaim an empire. She transformed it. She didn't destroy the world that wronged her. She built a better one in its place. And the storm she once was became the force that reshaped an entire industry. Spring sunlight poured through the floor-to-ceiling windows of Steel HQ in Atlanta. The city felt alive, but calm, reflective of Amaya's own evolution. The empire she had rebuilt from ashes now thrived, a testament to strategy, resilience, and vision. Yet, power alone had never been her ultimate goal. Amaya walked through the garden adjoining the office. Flowers in bloom, soft light falling over manicured paths, a gentle reminder that life could be both beautiful and intentional. Malik, her longtime partner in innovation, walked beside her, sharing quiet laughter as they discussed upcoming product launches. "Do you ever think about New York?" Malik asked, eyes curious. "Sometimes," Amaya replied, fingers brushing a petal, "but not enough to return. My past taught me to build a future, not relive mistakes." Weeks later, a small, intimate wedding took place. No media frenzy, no flashing cameras, just close friends, family, and the team that had stood by her during the darkest moments. Amaya's gown was simple, ivory silk, accented with subtle gold pins shaped like stars. Malik, in a classic tuxedo, smiled at her with a quiet intensity that needed no words. "You've built more than a company," he whispered as they exchanged vows. "You've built a life worth celebrating." Her smile reflected not just love, but triumph. Every betrayal, every setback, every moment of doubt had led her here, to peace and joy. Back at Steel HQ, the final touches of her legacy continued. The Steel Foundation opened its doors, dedicated to supporting women navigating workplace challenges, building startups, or pursuing careers in STEM and entrepreneurship. Every pamphlet, every program, every volunteer reflected the ethos she had fought to embed: empowerment, equity, and excellence. Damian Holt, quietly reassigned to consulting, arrived at a volunteer session at the foundation months later. No cameras, no fanfare, just accountability. Amaya approached him calmly. "This is your chance," she said softly, handing him a mop and guiding him toward the center of the facility. "Not punishment, but perspective. Learn what it feels like to rebuild, to serve, to reflect." He nodded, quietly, humbled by the simple truth of her words. No apologies spoken aloud. No headlines. Just learning through action, the kind of redemption only earned through humility. The city skyline shimmered again at dusk as Amaya returned to her office. Her eyes scanned the skyline she had once only dreamed of commanding. On her desk, a framed copy of the original check, the very paper that had tried to erase her, now symbolized resurrection and resolve. She slid it into the shredder. 10 years of pain, erased in 10 seconds. Amaya Steele's story wasn't just one of revenge. It was one of reclamation, resilience, and quiet brilliance. She didn't just survive betrayal. She transformed it into power, purpose, and peace. And as the city lights reflected in her office windows, the storm she once was smiled silently, knowing she had finally arrived.